Hello and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be discussing the Omega Seamaster Professional 300 meters, or the Bond as it's known, because it was used in the Bond franchise from 1993 and still to present day, but this was the first one that started that long relationship between Omega and the Bond franchise, being worn by Pierce Brosnan in 1993. So I'm going to talk about whether this is a good time to buy this watch, a quick history lesson, and yeah, just a few facts on it. So this particular one is a 1993, so it's one of the very first. It's got a tritium dial, as you can see, and a blue bezel, which is slightly faded. It's a 2561.80, so that means it's a 36mm quartz movement, which you can see by the ticking second hand. If this was an automatic, on the dial it would also say chronometer, so it'd say Seamaster Professional Chronometer 300 meters, so there'd be 4 lines of text there, and you'd have the sweeping second hand. And these are very recognizable as well by their helium escape valve at 10 o'clock. And the design has continued pretty much to present day. They've now added a ceramic bezel on, and obviously they switched to superlumen over lume, but the bracelet is still very similar. Few updates. They've updated the clasp, so this is quite an old clasp. It doesn't have micro adjustment, as you can see in there. We've just got a diver's extension and the traditional clasp. So this was launched in 1993 and it replaced this here. So this has now got the nickname of Pre-Bond. So this ran, I believe, from the late 80s into about 1995, so there's a bit of overlap. This one is a 1989 quartz 36mm. As you can see, this has an integrated bracelet, so the bracelet is integrated into the actual case, whereas this one isn't. So you can take this one off and put on an aftermarket strap. You can't with this one, so a few differences there. So you can see iconic design of this one is carried on to present day. So that's a quick history lesson. So now, what could you buy? So there's a few different options when these came out. You could buy a one like this, which is 36mm. You also have this, which was the 28mm ladies version. So you can see this does not have the helium escape valve on the left hand side. So this was marketed as a ladies watch, same style bracelet, but this has a integrated clasp, so hopefully you can see that. So a clasp looks sort of flush with a bracelet. You don't really notice it's not got a big sort of diver's noticeable clasp. Let's see, you can see at the top here is just this little button. You press that in. That's a bit difficult to do with one hand. Press that in and it springs open. So you've got a bit of so this runs forwards and backwards, so you can extend it a bit to get it over your wrist, and then you simply sort of push that too and click that in. Again, it's still got the iconic seahorse on the back. It's a bit thinner, I think, so I believe this one here is to give you the full dimensions of a 36. So it's 36mm case diameter. I believe it's 42mm lug to lug, 18mm lug width, and then 10mm thick. Whereas this one is quite a notice quite a bit smaller. Again, you've noticed this one in a white dial, so you could have it in a white dial as well. You could also have a 41mm version. They were very popular with the automatic. So 41 looks exactly like this, but it's bigger. And you could have a white dial like this on all of them with the silver brushed, polished bezel. You could have this dial here with this bezel as well. So there's lots of different color options. Later on they did a sort of black dial like this with a black bezel, or dark blue dial, whatever you want to call it. So there are a lot of color variations, not too many to confuse you, but there are a lot. This one here is probably one of the most popular configurations of the Seamaster Professional 36mm, which is a good size if you've got smaller wrists. I really like it. It's a great size, and in the blue as well. Great colour scheme. It's not too flashy, but it's still really nice colour scheme. And if you want a black on black, traditional dive watch like this, but in this you're gonna need to spend a bit more because I think they came out later. I think a lot of them have the coaxial movement, which was later introduced, and they're worth a lot more, so that you're probably going to need to spend two and a half grand, whereas this might be £1,200. Would I go for an automatic or a quartz? I think it depends what you're using it for. I really like the quartzes and because they're very easy to change the time because you can move the hour hand independently without stopping it. They keep great time as you'd expect for a quartz movement. So this one here is my personal watch. I've had it a couple of years, never had to set the time. It's kept perfect time for 2 years, absolutely perfect. And I love it that I can just put it on and don't have to worry about it. So quartz can be good in that. Automatic obviously has a bit more pizzazz to it, but you may have issues if you don't get one. But it's running great. It might cost a bit more to service, and obviously you've got to set it. Is it going to keep its good time? So I think if you're using it day in day out and it's not your main watch, I'll go for the quartz. Which now brings me on to another point about these watches, which is what are they really used for. So obviously they're a stainless steel sort of sporty diver, but if you think about a sporty diver like an original 50s Submariner, you're not going to want to wear that every day. It's too expensive, probably a bit fragile. So I think these in the mid 90s were a real step from these. So these I still think are quite vintage. They're quite flimsy, particularly if you look around the clasp. It's just folded, pressed metal. The clasp, I mean, it's still good quality, but not as quite as well made as these. These really feel modern. They feel really well screwed together. If you get a good example, they just feel solid. So I think these mark sort of a step change of where you could, this is now 30 years old. You could have bought this brand new, perhaps when, if you graduated or something and worn it for every day for 30 years and it would be fine. So I think these represent great everyday watches. They're not going to make you insanely rich. They made a lot of them, which again is a good thing, so there's probably a lot to choose from. But are they going to be really, 50, 60 gram watches in the future? I don't think so. At the moment, we're around £1,500. Could they be 2-3 gram maybe in the future? But if you want to get rich, this is not the watch to buy. If you want to have a nice watch to wear that you'll always be able to sell for a decent price, this is probably it. One word of warning is for clasp. So I don't actually own one of these as a personal watch because for clasp, for bracelet, I can't get it to fit me. So on these, so this older one, you've got the micro adjustment here on the clasp. So you've got the links, which offer quite big adjustment, and you can fine tune it by moving this backwards and forwards. On this, they've not got that because they sacrificed it for, I'll show you, a big dive extension there. You haven't got that micro adjustment. You do have these, the little link here, see the second link in, but still the adjustment I don't find is that great for my 6-inch wrist. So I've never been able to get on with them, which is why I've never personally had one or had one for that long. Whenever I get one in, I do swap my strap out for a mesh strap and just wear it for it because I think they're fantastic watches. So I'd say one word of warning: if you're going to buy one, make sure the bracelet fits you. If it doesn't, then you'll have to consider aftermarket solutions. So yeah, make sure a bracelet fits you. I think these are great watches to use every day. So if you're buying something for a collection or whatever, you might want to consider obviously box and papers. If it was me personally, as long as I knew it's genuine, I would probably go for the cheapest one that's in half decent nick. And me personally, knowing I was going to put it on aftermarket strap, these bracelets do fetch a few quid. So in the past, I've had these as personal watches where I've paid £600-700 for them, sold a bracelet on for £300 and had a really good watch on a nice aftermarket mesh strap for £500. Worn it for a summer and sold it on for 800-900. Obviously the market's risen a bit, So you know you're not going to want to do that, and obviously it's a bit harder to sell if it's not got the original bracelet. So you're going to think about if you want it, how long you want it. But I think these are great to buy as everyday watches. Just buy it, wear it, enjoy it. Another word of warning: obviously it's a diver. You can take it in the sea. That's fine. Going to want to make sure that it's probably pressure tested. Maybe as these are getting older now, replace the gaskets. So there's a gasket in the case back, and I believe there'll be one in the crown. So just make sure it's watertight before you take it in water. They will go to 300 meters, but I doubt you're going to be doing serious diving with this. It's got a unidirectional click bezel, which is really nice and tight on this one. This one's a really good example. I feel it's been cared for. I think it has undergone quite a recent service as well. So yeah, really nice example with the original box and papers, dated from 1993. So yeah, you can find great examples of these. So this one is, like I said, a tritium dial. So tritium is what makes, see all these dots on the dial? It's why they're yellow. So tritium was used on them to make them luminescent. So when you turn the lights off, they still glow. I've missed the bezel again. I'm going to leave it and do it in a minute. In 1998, I believe, they came out with Superluminova, or Superluminova existed, but Omega started using it, Tudor started using it, Rolex started using it in the very, very late 90s. What that is it's basically a better version of tritium. Tritium is very slightly radioactive. It has a half-life of about 12.5 years, so something like this, or that, which has tritium, and this here, which is a 1997, again that has tritium, because you can see the dots in the dial have gone slightly brown. These should be white, so if I focus in, you can see on the edge how they're sort of slightly white. They should be that all over. So these have aged. Now that gives it a really nice effect. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not harmful. Previous older watches would have used rhodium, which is harmful. Tritium is fine. It is harmful if you're gonna like eat it, but obviously you're not gonna eat it. It won't ever really touch your skin. Obviously, it is applied here, but you know, no big deal. Superluminova from 98 onwards, I believe. You know, it's so much brighter, it's better, particularly Seamasters. The lume is really good. So if you're going to use it a lot in dark situations, or it's just a really cool, it goes on personal preference. If you want like a nice A's look like this, then tritium probably works. Also a Superluminova watch in good condition from the late 90s. If you get one in good nick, say like this watch with bracelet's really good nick, you know, if this had, you know, a bezel that wasn't faded and that Superluminova dial, it would look brand new. So it's the look you want to go for, whether you want to go a bit more vintage like this, or a slightly newer look with potentially a bit more functionality. So like I said, I don't think these are ever going to be silly money. I think they'll be, you know, they'll be there's always a market for these watches. They're great watches. You know, sort of, you know, I've had a lot of people buy these as graduation presents. You know, a lot of people like them for themselves. It all goes on personal preference, but fantastic watches available in a wide variety of sizes. So you've got a 28mm for, you know, potential ladies watch, or if you've got small wrists. And these are obviously denotable, like by the fact I said, you know, they've not got the crown here. 36mm, really good watch. Now Omega don't do a Seamaster Professional 36 anymore. So if you want a 36, it's got to be one of these. I really do like them. They're great watches. Why I don't own one is the price. If these were £500, like I used to buy them for 500-600, you could sell a bracelet. You know, if you could be all in, for me personally, all in with like a nice mesh strap for under 500 quid, I'd probably consider one alongside this. So this is the pre-bomb that came before it. I picked this up for about 350 quid. If you wanted to pick one up today in good nick, maybe 500-600 would get you a really nice one, whereas these are double that. And if you've got, you know, this is my sort of good daily, sort of semi-nice, but also not, then, you know, it's a nice watch, but it's not going to set the world on fire. You know, I'm not downplaying it or abusing it. It's a great watch, I love it, but it's not you know, it's not a vintage Samara or something, it's not worth insane amounts of money. Whereas if I had 1,500 quid tied up in mist, I'd think, well, shouldn't I, you know, I wouldn't really use it and so on and so forth. So I occasionally buy them, wear them for a bit, sell them on. But they are fantastic, fantastic watches, and that's shown by how many there are. They made a lot of them because they were popular when they were new, and they're still popular today. So thank you for watching. If you've got any comments, leave it in the comments below. Let me know if you've owned any of these watches and what you think of them, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.